to Settling Scores, the musical theater podcast. We're your hosts, Stephanie Dillard.
Hey there, I'm Lenny West.
And Forrest Hutchinson.
And we're so glad you've tuned in to hear us bicker and banter about all things Broadway. Today we'll be featuring the musical The Music Man. Heavy on the ooh sound in that title for Lenny Music Man.
Yes.
But first...
Talk to me, baby, won't you talk to me?
You know what that means. That song signals it's time for a catch-up convo, where we discuss any shows we've seen recently and any musical theater news we have to share. Forrest, would you like to talk a little for us?
Oh, cheap little talk.
By the way, I hope you're both prepared for a sickening amount of very poor Music Man puns today, because I have been looking forward to this episode for like a solid month. I'm so
Great.
ready. Forrest, go for it.
Let's see. Well, last night saw Annie at TPAC, our Performing Arts Center in Tennessee. It was good. I'd never seen it on stage or the movie version. I'd listened to the music, but I was unjaded by nostalgia when viewing this show.
How did you manage to avoid Annie all of your life?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I never watched the movie as a kid. I never really knew the songs until, like I said, I was older and I bought the CD and listened to it. So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
I knew
like
tomorrow,
that.
but that's all. But yeah, so it was a good show.
Good.
All
I
right.
enjoyed it. There were several very pleasant moments, and some of the songs are still stinkers. But and then I've been listening. There's a new recording just came out by Michael John Latruisa, and it's called "The Gardens of Annuncia," and it has several famous Hispanic Broadway stars: Priscilla Lopez, who was in the original chorus line. Cash, she sang "Nothing," and "What I Did for Love." I think she was the lead singer.
Yep,
Maybe
she sure was.
she's great, and. Eden Espinosa, right? Oh, she's great. And then Mary Testa, I don't think she's of Hispanic descent, is she?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. But Michael John Latruisa just loves her, and he puts her in everything. But he just released this recording for the show, and I guess it played off Broadway this past year. But it has been pretty delightful so far. But his music especially I have to listen to several times, so I'm still kind of taking it in.
Absorbing it, yeah.
And there are so many shows opening on Broadway right now. We won't get them right now.
Yeah.
You guys
Spring
may
season
cover
is
them, but
amazing. It's
so many
packed.
musicals, so many plays. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Lenny.
So I don't necessarily have any news to contribute to this. I have been up to my eyeballs in preparing for the show that I'm about to direct at our local community theater, She Loves Me.
Woo-hoo.
Yes, music directed by the incomparable Stephanie Dillard. So I've
And
not...
wait, Forrest is doing... Oh, wait, Forrest isn't doing anything for the
I'm
musical.
a production consultant, I thought. That was my time.
You were very
Yeah.
helpful at the auditions, though. You ran the
Yes.
MP3 player for us at
Go
the
buy
auditions.
tickets, pull tight.
There you
okay,
go.
still have time.
He's our cheerleader. Go
Wherever
ahead,
you are,
Lenny.
yeah.
Sorry.
So I haven't been seeing shows or listening to too much. I've just been preparing for that. But I would love, if I may, I would love to shout out our listeners who reached out to us via Facebook and other platforms after our last episode on The Visit, telling us their experiences with that show, particularly the play.
Yeah.
And in particular, I want to call out a listener named Peyton who reached out to me afterwards and gave me a bunch of info on that other German language production of The Visit that I
Yeah.
mentioned. A whole lot of really cool information, and perhaps it included a visual component, maybe a video, maybe who knows, which I have not had time to dig into yet, Peyton. But I really appreciate that, and I can't wait to watch it. So that was awesome.
Cool.
To like
great.
have an interaction with some of our listeners. Please, if you're listening, let us know what you think. We
Yes.
want to hear from you.
Feel
so
free.
That's all I've got, really. So, Stephanie, I'm throwing it to you.
Sure, yeah. I wanted to mention that the musical Tammy Faye, about Tammy Faye Baker, with music by Sir Elton John, lyrics by Jake Shears, book is by James Graham. It's announced that it's coming across the pond. It's going to do its Broadway previews in October, so that's exciting. And I acquire the rights for our local community theater pull-type players, so I'm always kind of got my eye on who is buying up what, and Concord has gone on a buy-in spree. They just acquired rights to Some Like It Hot, which is launching its North American tour here fall of this year. And last year, I think like October or November, it also picked up Jagged Little Pill rights.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I did see that.
Yep, you never know. You might be auditioning for that one at a community theater near you sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Did you see the movie that Jessica Chastain won the Academy Award
No.
for with the Tammy Faye. It's like
Yeah.
Through the Eyes of Tammy Faye or
Yeah.
something. It's really good.
Ooh, I need to see that.
Really, really good.
Andrew Rannells was in the musical in London
Yeah,
too, from Book of Mormon. The guy was in the original Book of Mormon.
I think
so.
he's coming to Broadway with it as well,
That's
if I'm not
awesome.
mistaken.
I grew
very
up
excited
a PK, a pastor's daughter, in a Pentecostal church. So, I mean, this was Jimmy Swaggart,
Oh, yeah.
the Bakers. This was my life
You need to
growing
watch,
up. So
you
I'm
need to
going to
watch
be there.
the movie.
Oh,
Andrew
I know.
Garfield is also in the movie.
Oh, I love him.
She
He's
plays, I think, the
excellent.
husband, right?
Yeah,
What's
he's
his
Jim
name?
Baker.
Jim
Baker.
Yeah.
I am going to have to see
You got
that.
to check it out. So it's
Absolutely. Thanks
great.
for that,
Very
Rec.
fun.
And that's all the Broadway news we have for you. And the sound of crackling flames means we've now come to the part of our show where I present a musical theater quiz for Forrest and Lenny, and of course you, our dear listeners at home, to answer with absolutely no preparation whatsoever. I know, you're thinking, will I ever tell you the questions? I'm going to go ahead and let you marinate on that one for just a hot sec. Good, you got it. All right, here we go. Our spotlight musical today is The Music Man. So let's see how much you guys really know about the show and its composer. Hands at the ready? Yes, they
Meredith
are.
Willson.
Number one, in the song Wells Fargo Wagon, what is somebody hoping for from Tampa?
Dun, 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 dun.
It's a citrus fruit. Lenny.
Grapefruit.
Yes, boom, grapefruit. Excellent. Number two,
That's so funny.
who's the man who tries to reveal Harold Hill's scheme? Lenny again.
Charlie Cowell.
Yes, and
I
my
don't know
sister,
that guy's name. I didn't get a name.
my sister played Marion in high school,
wow.
and she said the guy, Marion has to kiss Charlie
right,
Cowell. She
right,
said that guy
classic.
had the worst breath in the world. He would like binge Cheetos, and they would be caking his teeth.
Oh,
And it was,
no.
she it was not good. It was bad.
Amazing.
If you're playing Charlie Cowell out there, folks, please pop a breath.
Stephanie,
mint.
will you grab Lenny's bell and keep away from him so I can
No, if I have to do this show, I'm going to win this quiz.
Full out.
on fire?
Number three, which of these things about Meredith Willson is true? A, he had an NBC music show called Sparkle Time. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. B, he created the Talking People, a choral group that spoke in unison while delivering radio commercials. Sorry, listeners, we're all cracking up over here. C, he wrote the Salvation Army theme song and the University of Iowa's fight song. And finally, D, he garnered an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Score for Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. What?
Wait,
Forrest.
a couple of those are true, right?
They're all
I know.
true.
I know B is true. I was
They're
I know
all
B is true. I know
true.
D is true. I think C is true. I don't know about A. But
Sneaky
Sparkle time.
Stephanie. Yeah. Isn't that hilarious? That's a lot of
I'm gonna count that as a point.
weird and cool stuff.
I
That was
can't.
absolutely a point for you. Number 4. In the opening number of the show, Rock Island, which of these items is not listed? A, hogshead, B, firkins, C, cornet, or D, tierce? Forrest.
Wait, what was the last one?
Tierce, T-I-E-R-C-E, tierce.
Is there I don't think there's a Firkins. Is there a Firkins?
There
in
is a
there?
firkins. Lenny, you want to
Lenny,
steal?
what is it?
Which one is not in the number?
D.
No.
What is it?
Oh,
Both wrong.
really?
There's a hogshead.
It's
I know.
cornet. He talks about trumpets. He never talks about a
trumpet.
cornet.
Say
Oh,
cornet.
okay.
But I
Tricky.
picked those other ones, A, because they're weird, but B, because every single one of those means a cask, a large cask or barrel.
different
Oh,
word
really?
for
A
cask.
hogshead, a firkins, and a tierce.
Okay,
Those are all
interesting.
casks. Yeah, I thought that was so cool. Number 5. What major first did the original Music Man cast recording accomplish? Lenny.
First Grammy Award for Best Cast Recording.
Boom. That's it. Best original cast album. Good job. Number 6. Who
more?
plays Winthrop in the 1962 film adaptation? Lenny.
Little baby Ron Howard.
Yes, and he was so cute. And fun fact to follow up with that, in an episode of the TV series Happy Days, Howard and Marion Cunningham, they pause in the lobby of a movie theater to examine a poster for the Music Man.
Oh, really?
And Marion comments, "Oh, that little boy, he looks so much like Richie did when he was little. Isn't that cute?" I mean, it's so
Womp
funny.
womp.
So meta.
Yeah. So cheese. Number 7. What was Wilson's second musical? Oh, that was such a tie. Okay, Forrest.
The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Boom. Ran on Broadway for 532 performances. Very good. And was made into a movie with Debbie Reynolds.
Debbie Reynolds.
Last one. Last chance. Number 8. How about his third Broadway musical? That was Forrest again.
It's called Here's Love.
Yes.
It's
and
it's one of those Christmas movies. What's it?
Adaptation of Miracle on 34th.
34th.
Yes, that's right. And some people thought it was a failure, but it actually had an 8-month run on Broadway.
It is remembered as kind of a flop.
Yep.
Also, the Unsinkable Mullet. Basically, he never wrote anything good after The Music Man. We'll talk about it later.
He never wrote anything good, full stop.
Oh, that's
Burn.
not true.
Nice.
But I think both those musicals kind of ran on the advanced sell of this is a guy who wrote The Music Man.
For sure.
It's 5-bit, putting it together.
Now it's time to focus on one particular show to go in depth with and discuss / burn each other to the ground over. Come on in and settle those scores for us, guys. Today we're going behind the scenes with the musical The Music Man, with book, music, and lyrics, all of them, by Meredith Willson, based on a story by Willson and Franklin Lacey. Now guys, I'm really sorry, but if you're not ready for this, then you got trouble.
Oh, got him.
I
love it.
can't help myself. Lenny's going to start us off with the synopsis, and then we'll move into some background from Forrest. So without further ado, Lenny, what's this, your acknowledged favorite show of all time? What's this show about?
Once upon a time,
I got such a dirty look. It was
there
awesome.
was an unexpected traveling salesman who got off a train and landed in a cranky town full of cranky people in Iowa. And there was a super cranky old maid librarian, and her suspiciously young, lisping younger brother in air quotes.
I always thought that was
is
weird,
true, yeah.
too.
Like, why is he so young?
I
His
thought
mom
his
is
aunt
so
and nephew
old,
for a
and his
while,
sister-
yeah.
And all of the people in the whole town, all of whom were potentially intellectually stunted, threw away all of their money on musical instruments, and it was awful. The end.
I'd say you covered
Ju-
pretty much most of it. Yeah.
Just kidding. Kind of.
Sort of.
But not really. But for real, though, July 1912, a fast-talking traveling salesman, Professor Harold Hill, comes to River City, Iowa, a town that is hesitant about letting in strangers, especially ones trying to sell something. Harold calls himself a music professor, selling band instruments, uniforms, and the idea of starting a boys' band with the local youth. Or Utes, if you're in My Cousin Vinny. Harold decides that he must create a situation of concern for the citizens of River City in order for them to buy into his idea of starting a boys' band with himself as the leader. He convinces them that the arrival of a new pool table in his town is trouble and will only cause corruption of the city's youth. The way to fight this, of course, is with music and a band. Families begin to pay money to order instruments and uniforms, and in return, Harold begins to teach the boys his revolutionary think system. In order to learn the music, simply think about the melodies of the music, and then you'll be able to play it. Marion Peru, the local librarian and part-time piano teacher, is not so easily convinced. She tracks down information to incriminate Harold Hill and prove that he is a fraud. She is ready to hand it over to the mayor when she has a sudden change of heart as she sees her younger brother come out of his shell by the arrival of his new instrument for the band. Marion and Harold begin to see more of each other, and their relationship develops. Then, as the city is preparing to celebrate 4th of July, a rival, vengeful salesman, Charlie Cowell, arrives to expose Harold Hill and convince the townspeople to arrest him. The townsfolk demand that Harold make good on his word to teach the children to play their instruments, whereupon he desperately implores the young'uns to think, men. The kids begin to play, and it is the unmitigated disaster that it was always going to be, but the parents are so proud and overjoyed to see their children playing that they are, as Harold always intended, hoodwinked into buying into the idea that something wonderful has just occurred, and Harold Hill is let off scot-free, and he hooks up with Marion the librarian as we are subjected to a show-stopping reprise of 76 Trombones that goes on for far, far, far too long until the curtain mercifully falls.
Wow. Okay.
You're welcome.
Forrest, do you have some
That was good.
some background info for us?
I do. The Music Man.
Where's the show
background,
over?
okay. No, so it was originally Meredith Willson, the composer. He, he had been in a radio, the stuff you mentioned, right? He was in a radio show.
Did a lot of things,
He was
yeah.
kind of a jack of all trades in the music industry. He wrote for films, but he was starting to write his memoir about his growing up in Iowa, and he wanted to turn it into a television special at first, I think. Frank Lesser, which he was the composer of Guys and Dolls. We'll talk about him a little bit later. I have some theories. But he encouraged Meredith Willson to, make this into a Broadway musical. So Meredith Willson started working on it. He wrote the lyrics, music. He wrote the book along with help from Franklin Lacey. Franklin Lacey edited the libretto of the story. But it was mostly all written by Willson. It took him 8 years to write the musical. So,
Wow.
I heard the rumor. Well, what I read was there was 40 drafts written of the show.
That's dedication right there. Or desperation.
Or
I'm not sure.
desperation.
Yeah.
He wrote 38 songs for the score.
Oh my
Eventually,
gosh.
22 were thrown out. 22 were cut at some point. But it eventually did open in 1957, December 1957. And it ran, that original production ran for 1,375 performances. It was a huge hit. It was nominated for 8 Tony Awards. It won 5 of them, including Best Musical, the Best Musical Tony Award, beating out West Side Story.
That was a duet there.
It got Best Actor Tony Wynn for Robert Preston, and not Best Actress, but Best Featured Actress for Barbara Cook, because the
rules were different.
nominations were so weird. Carol Lawrence of West Side Story also was nominated for Featured Actress that year. It's just strange. But so let's talk about the cast. In that original production, it starred as Harold Hill was Mr. Robert Preston. The part was originally offered to a lot of famous people like Gene Kelly, Danny Kaye, Ray Bolger was an interesting one.
Wow,
So-
he was a scarecrow, right?
Yeah, so they offered it to a bunch of people. Nobody wanted to take the role,
What a
though.
surprise.
And so they settled on Preston, who wasn't really known as a singing actor. He had done some film work, and he had done some theater, but never musical theater. But it became his breakout role, and he kind of defined the show for a while there. It's rare to have a male lead kind of put his mark on a role like Robert Preston did. The only one I can think of is Yul Brynner in The
King and I, yeah.
right? Preston was joined in the cast by Barbara Cook as Marion Peru, the librarian, aforementioned by Lenny. And we spent plenty of time talking about Barbara Cook in the She Loves Me episode, and just any time we think of great classic
her.
Sopranos,
Love
we
her.
talk about Barbara Cook.
She is the best.
She had recently been in Candide, in which she sang Glitter and Be Gay, one of the greatest
Tough
things to ever be
song.
recorded
Yes.
for
Yeah.
musical theater, probably.
Or anything else.
Yes, honestly. The show is a hit, big hit, like I said. They decided to do a movie of it. Originally, I think they were going to recast Harold Hill and Marion Peru, but they ended up, I think Meredith Willson fought to keep Robert Preston on as Harold Hill, which I think was a good decision.
Absolutely.
And then they brought on Shirley Jones to play Marion Peru.
Yep.
The first revival of it on Broadway, of The Music Man on Broadway, was in 2000. It starred Craig Bierko, is that his name?
I think so.
Bierko. I don't know what else he's been in. I don't know if he's been in any other musicals that I know of.
Mostly television,
Okay.
Some film, and a little bit of theater. He did that 2011 Philharmonic production of Company with Neil Patrick
yes,
Harris.
I remember.
Yeah,
he was in
yeah.
that, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and see if I can spot him in there. And then Rebecca Luker, who we've
Yes.
also spoken
love
of
her.
Love.
as Marion. She was lovely. That production ran for 699 performances. And I just want to mention, I'm going to talk about this later too, but Susan Stroman was the one who choreographed that
Yep.
one. I love her.
Directed it,
choreography,
too.
but Directed it, right. And
Yep.
then we'll get into that a little later. But then the second Broadway revival that a lot of you, I'm sure, will remember, premiered in February of 2022, which starred Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster as the two leading roles. It ran, I don't know if I know how long it ran. It ran for quite a while. It was a fairly big hit. It was right after COVID had happened. And they were kind of the first big musical to open back up. And they had the big stars because it had been announced, I think, pre-COVID.
It had, yeah.
And it got shut down.
Yep.
And so they brought it back on. And the reviews were mixed. We'll talk about that one when we talk about the recordings too. But mixed reviews, but it ran forever and ever, of course, because Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster were both in
Name
it,
draw
so.
for sure.
Right,
Yeah.
of course. But that's all the background I have, Stephanie. So
All right. Well, now it's time for the curtain call portion of our show. I'll ask Lenny and Forrest questions about our feature show of the episode, Music Man, and we'll hear them argue like the brothers from another mother that they very much are. First off, how did you all first encounter this show and get to know it? Lenny, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I probably first knew of this show from the Beatles cover of Till There Was You.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, am a big Beatles fan and was kind of discovering them in high school. And that song came on. I thought, sounds different from anything I've ever heard them do. It was really lovely. It was really pretty. I probably saw the movie at some point thereabouts. I started getting hardcore into theater freshman, sophomore-ish year of high school. So I was watching all the old classic movies, Guys and Dolls, West Side Story, and probably The Music Man was in there somewhere. I don't specifically remember seeing it the first time. However, that 2000 revival that you were talking about, directed by Susan Stroman, was the first show I ever saw on Broadway. And that was the first time I ever saw the show live. But I really don't truthfully remember how the first time I encountered it as a whole. It just seems like it was always there, sort of lurking, ready to pounce. So yeah, that's my story.
What about you, Forrest?
I was first encountered the show when I played Winthrop at our church's theater. So,
We need to hear a little bit. Like, give us a bar or two.
Gary, Indiana, not Louisiana, Perth, France, New York, or Rome. Gary, Indiana, my home sweet home.
Oh my God, that was so adorable. Yes. And thank you for not spitting all over my equipment. If you listen to the 22 to that song, I know the technicians in this video were dying because that kid, he was spitting everywhere. It's the biggest one I've ever heard. It was like a full raspberry every time. But anyway, so.
Yeah, so that's where I first encountered it. I really enjoyed being in that production. I don't know how old I was. I guess probably around 10 or 11, but it was really fun. I've loved the show ever since, pretty much.
Well, why don't you rank it for us? From 1 to 10, worst to best for you personally, and tell us why you chose that ranking.
This is a tough one, I would say. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, because I think in ways it's overrated as a classic, but in ways it's underrated, because I don't think we have necessarily the correct perspective when we think about it. It's hard to see the ingenuity of the score when we listen to it now in 2024. It's musically inventive. I think that's the only way to describe it. He was using counterpoint in a way that wasn't used in the theater. He was using, taking the exact same melody, changing the tempo, and putting it, making two different songs out of it, right?
Yeah.
The early birthings of, dare I say, I don't know, the early birthings of rap on stage, right? With
River
Rock
City.
Island.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Rock Island, too.
With that opening. And then you got Trouble, kind of in a rap patter way, too.
But just as I say it takes judgment, brains, and maturity to score in a bop-line game, I say that any boob can take and shove a ball in a pocket. And I call that sloth. The first big step on the road to the depths of degradation. I say first, medicinal wine from a teaspoon, then beer from a bottle. And the next thing you know, your son is playing for money in a pinchback suit. And listening to some big out-of-town Jasper, hearing him tell about horse race gambling. Not a wholesome trotting race, no, but a race where they set down right on the horse. Like to see some stuck-up jockey boy setting on Dan Patch, make your blood boil, well, I should say. Now, friends, let me tell you what I mean. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pockets in a table. Pockets that mark the difference between a gentleman and a bum with a capital B, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool. And all week long...
Even the piano lesson scene, taking that dun, 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 and turning it into the discourse that Marion and her mother have, and then Goodnight My Someone, becoming Goodnight My Someone.
It's really inventive for its time. You're right.
I remember there was an interview I watched with Barbara Cook, and she was saying she remembered the first time she had heard the score, and she was in an apartment with Meredith Willson and the director, and she said she had never heard anything like it. And when she saw it on stage, audiences were blown away. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know, when we see West Side Story today, we can still look at it and say, oh, I can see how this was so cool and so inventive, especially the choreography, right? And even musically, we can still see how cool it was. But when we watch Music Man today, I don't know if we're taken with the score the way they were in the 1950s, 60s, right?
Wow, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So we're talking about counterpoint. So the obvious counterpoint, right, is
Light of Rose.
Light of Rose, yes, and then even Goodnight My Someone and 76 Trombones, right? That they're kind of the same song. I read that he intended the Sadder But Wiser Girl for Me and My White Knight to be counterpoint.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah, so... And I read somewhere that he
that.
said he was disappointed that no one ever caught that. And I was like, how would anyone... I could never... I'll have to listen again and put those two together, but
Interesting.
I read that
You
before
need to
that.
see it on paper, see it written out to be able to figure that out. That's
very
obscure.
strange.
Yeah.
But it is currently ranked as my number 36 favorite Broadway score
that's high
out
on
of
the
about
list for you.
320. So that's pretty high.
Yeah.
So I think I'm trying to see the merits of it through that 1950s lens, while also, it is decidedly old-fashioned in its book.
For sure.
So.
What about you, Lenny? Rank it for us.
So I can intellectually understand and appreciate that this is an enduring, quote, classic of the American musical theater. And I can understand that this show is easily digestible and it doesn't require much or anything at all from its audience. And I can, I suppose, understand that it is kind of, sort of, it maybe achieves what it sets out to do, which is just simply to entertain. And I even see what you're saying about the score, Forrest. And actually, the score is not one of my biggest problems with this show. But it doesn't entertain me at all. I find the book is insufferable and it's cloying, and the characters and the choices that they make are asinine and stupefying.
Borderline offensive in multiple cases.
The plot is maddening, though, like I just started to say, there are a handful of genuinely good and in maybe 3 cases, great songs. However, for me personally, which is the question, I'm giving this nonsense a 3.
I thought he was going to go in the negative number territory and say
I'm being
-1.
fair.
That's not fair at all.
Yes,
I didn't even
is.
talk about the book. The book is it's pretty amazing. I think.
Are you
the way,
serious?
Yeah, I love the book.
Wow.
I think I love the characters because it's satirical, but it's also he loves these people because he was these people and he saw these people. It's his mom, and it's the person down the street that he's writing about.
Then I think he hates his
later.
mother and he hates the person down the street.
It's perfect because it's making fun of him the whole time. We'll talk about this as we go on. The tone is just chef's kiss for the tone of it being just enough poking, making fun of them, being silly. I mean, there are some offensive moments, but we'll talk about that. But I'm not offensive to the people.
It was a product of its time.
Not offensive to the people of Iowa. Obviously, the people of Iowa, he treats them with, sardonic sarcasm, but also with care.
Love.
Like
Are
he
you
loves them,
serious?
okay? Yeah, I'm serious. It's a great
Wow.
book to a show.
Okay.
How could you give it a 3? That's just ridiculous.
He's offended.
This is a great night at the theater. You put this show on, people will love this. And no, that's not the standard because, people love whatever, Jagged Little Pill. And you guys love...
Oh, burn.
You all loved Tina the musical, Tina Turner musical.
Tina was good.
People can love anything nowadays. But we talk about musicals that are director proof. And of course I say that and a director will go, here, hold my drink, hold my beer, I'm going to go show you how about, but shows that they're so well written that almost if you just put them on, let people do it, that they'll be successful, right? Guys and Dolls, I would say, is one of those shows.
Yeah.
My Fair Lady, most of the time you can you get the gist if you just go by what's written in libretto. The Music Man, I would say, is close. I don't think it is because you do have to do some work with the tone, but is pretty close to a surefire good time as you're going to get in the theater.
Well, I was going to have you do favorite and least favorite moment, but you've been talking for a while. A nice long rebuttal. It's unusual for Forrest.
Yes,
He's
it
feeling
is.
passionate about the Music Man.
Someone's got to defend it.
Lenny, tell us about your favorite and least favorite moment.
My favorite moment is when it's over. Okay,
When the curtain comes down at the end.
I'm gonna rein in my hatred of this show, and I'm gonna actually take this seriously.
Okay.
My favorite story point, because I don't have one thing, I've got to break it down. My favorite story point. It is well established that I personally am a Grinch with no human emotions, but gosh darn it, if I don't get a smidge verklempt when Winthrop, Marion's alleged younger brother, who has been at best monosyllabic this whole show due to the fact that he's self-conscious about his lisp. When he lets his freak flag fly and he breaks out into his
That's so
solo
sweet.
in Wells Fargo wagon, lisp and all, which... P.S. That's a song that I absolutely despise. So it is kind of the best of times, worst of times for me. The song is awful, but it's just a delightful
Sweet
moment.
Yeah.
My favorite line in the show, which has kind of crept into my own phraseology now and then. It genuinely makes me giggle every time I hear it. But instead of me telling you what it is, I would like to, if we may, listen to Jane Howdyshell as Eulalie McKechnie Shin, the mayor's wife, from the 2022 Broadway cast recording Say It. Set up, the ladies in the town, the Pickalittle ladies, are so excited about the band, and they ask Mrs. Shin if she is also excited. And she replies,
Isn't it exciting, Eulalie?
Oh, I couldn't say. I could not say. Oh, no, I could not say at this time. My husband will wish to investigate, I'm sure, and naturally, I'm reticent. Oh, yes, I'm reticent.
Oh, of course.
Oh, Jane Howdyshell can kind of do no wrong. I think it's
Agreed.
great in this clip. Another favorite snippet of a scene for me is when Harold Hill forms the barbershop quartet.
Yes.
And I'd like to play this as well if we can. This is from the 2000 revival recording with Craig Bierko and the guys.
Let's roll it.
Say, ice cream.
Ice cream, but I don't sing, young man. If
That's all right. Talk then. Down here.
Ice cream.
Talk slow.
Ice cream.
You see, singing is only sustained talking. Now you, sir. Ice cream. Now you, sir. Ice cream. Now you, sir. Ice cream.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And that is the extent of my favorite moments in the show. I'll throw it to you for favorite moments.
All right, favorite moments for us.
I like a lot of the show. I am going to stick to one moment. And it's funny you said you liked when it was over, because one of my favorite moments is close to the end. It's not the ending, because I kind of don't like that Marion just, gives up all her, intelligence and independence to follow
The
him.
end
So
of
yeah,
Grease.
I
We're
get
going to
that.
talk about that
Right.
later.
I understand there's some issues, but I think my favorite moment is when they're all gathered in the town hall or wherever they are, their little building, and they finally got in Harold Hill. They're about to tar and feather him. They're like, okay, you promised us a band, so make these kids play. And so Harold Hill's like, okay, boys, and so he starts out, and the band plays terribly, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to tar and feather him, because the kids are just playing, everything's off key. No one's playing anything. They're not even playing a melody. And then suddenly one little lady cries out, that's my Willie, that's my Ted. I can't remember they say, that's little Freddie. And they're so excited just to see them standing there in uniforms, making noises with these instruments. It's so funny. I think that's a perfect ending to the show, because, it's kind of sweet, but it's also like making fun of them, but it's just a perfect ending, I believe, to that.
It's a cute wrap up. I have to give you that. It's true. How about your least favorite moment, Forrest?
Oh, this is really specific. I mean, I'm sure there's really bad moments, or I could name like overarching bad moments, but this is close to the beginning. After the piano lesson, Winthrop comes in for the first time, and Amaryllis invites him to a party, and he politely declines, but he does not say her name because he lisps and he doesn't want to say his S's. Oh. And she's like, why don't you say my name? And then his mom's like, say her name, like torturing the poor kid. Like, why does he have to say, just say no thank you. There's no S's in no thank you. But he's like, so they make him say, he's like, Amaryllis, and then she immediately mocks him. She's like,
terrible.
She's like, you can't say Amaryllis. And then he runs off the stage, and then she's like, why does he not love me? And I'm like, you just bullied
Get a clue.
him.
Amaryllis is a demon child.
Yeah, and I'm like,
and his mother for making him do it. I
right.
absolutely agree with you.
So that's probably, at least, I know that's small, but every time it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Well, you had to play that role. You had to be embarrassed
I
like
know,
that
I was
every night.
mocked,
So
yeah.
it's
Maybe that's
been
why it's a
burned
Freudian
into your
thing.
yeah.
Yep.
What about you, Lenny?
Okay, so I have a lot of least favorite moments, but I'll try to run through them quickly. The names of the characters are my least favorite moment.
Really?
Tommy Giles, Amaryllis, Zanita, Ethel Toffelmeyer, Eulalie McKechnie Shin,
crazy.
Winthrop, the surname Peru, and worst of all, Marion the librarian. I roll my eyes so hard that it gives me a migraine to think about that. I mean,
Those are
how
so funny.
lame is that? You make up a name for the sake of a rhyme? That pisses me off. And I'm sorry, Sondheim kind of did it too, and I'm pissed off at him with sorry, Charlie, in Merrily We Roll Along. So it happens, but pisses me off. I also hate the language and the catchphrases.
Yeah, you got it.
We're getting there.
Wait, sorry, I'm
Yeah, no,
interrupting.
go.
Our church theater did not like ye God, so we said
Wow.
ye Gad.
Yep.
Ye Gad. So
Oh my
just-
gosh.
Yeah, and I think Zanita is the one that says that. She says it at one point 5 times in the span of 2 minutes. Come on!
It's a lot.
What's her
It
line
is a
about
lot.
the Capulets? She's like, "You're the reason the Capulets are bloodletting in the streets," or something like that.
What?
Yes. So it's that. It's the intentionally mispronouncing library. It is great honk, you wild kid ya. Geely Cly. It's like you repeating something over and over, especially made up phrases, do not make them funny. It makes them infuriating.
It's like he was making his own Klingon, like his own language.
He's making up his own language,
Yeah.
yes, and I hate it. That's the one thing I dislike in West Side Story when Arthur Lawrence did that. Wicked does it, and that pisses me off too. Like, it's just speak actual words at me, please. And in addition to that, you have all of Mayor Shin's phraseology, things like. A little boy asks him, or says, "Good morning, Mayor Shin," and he says, "It is if you want to go around in your drawers all day." What is that?
This is a really weird
Come
line.
on. He says, "Now you stay away from my oldest girl, or you'll hear from me till who laid the rails." What?
That's an actual phrase, I think, though. That's a thing I would say.
I
don't
disagree.
think? I think that is a phrase.
He says, "I couldn't make myself any clearer if I's a button hook in well water." What the heck?
I've heard that one. Yeah.
Very
Don't
strange.
get it. The script in general, I find, is just like too precious and too look at me, I'm being funny, exemplified by those phrases, and also by that whole scene leading up to 76 Trombones, which is where their 4th of July celebration,
Yes.
and Mayor Shin keeps trying to recite the Gettysburg Address, and then he keeps getting interrupted, and the fireworks, and then something like super offensive happens
Yes,
in
it
the
does.
original script. We need
Indeed.
to maybe speak about
We're
that.
going to cover that later, yeah. I have
Okay.
a question for you guys about that.
Okay, we'll get that later. I mean, I could go on and on and on about my least favorite moments, but those are the most offensive to me right off the top.
Okay, how about your, Forrest, how about your favorite song?
Okay, let's see.
It's Gary, Indiana. Okay,
No.
Lenny,
Indiana.
favorite song? No.
The star of the show, Winthrop, comes on. Just kidding. I think my favorite song is "Till There Was You." I'm a sucker for
sweet.
a romantic
Yeah.
11 o'clock number. I love 11 o'clock
And
numbers, and
it's
that's kind
not
of just
pitched
perfect.
freakishly high like My White Knight.
That's true. We could talk
Yay.
about that one.
We're going to talk about that a lot later.
Good.
It's just a lovely little song. The lyrics are simple. The melody is beautiful. And then you listen to Barbara Cook do it, or Rebecca Luker. Both of them just perform it very well. And then even in the original with Robert Preston coming at the end, he doesn't ruin it with his croaking voice. He kind of just lands
Till
in.
There Was
They
You.
put his harmonies right between C and C sharp, and they said, "Hey, just sing this
This is
note."
your note,
Yeah.
Robert. William Shatner it. Go ahead.
Right.
Oh, no.
And Marian's finally able to allow herself to love and confess her love. Well, actually, she kind of does that in the Light of Rose song too. But she, just tells him it's just simple and beautiful. And then You Got Trouble is also a pretty much perfect musical theater song. It's good musical theater writing.
It had some lyric upgrades in the 22. We can talk about that later too.
in a minute,
Yeah.
too. Yeah. But it's just really strong writing, having the central character come out and command the stage with this all eyes on me kind of number. And I do love Marian the Librarian. I love that number. And then I really like the lyrics in the Sadder But Wiser Girl for me.
Really?
Like things like, I pray for Hester to win just one more A, like a reference to the Scarlet Letter. I think they're so clever in some of that.
Have you listened to those lyrics?
I love the lyrics.
Okay.
The kind of rap part of the beginning, getting into the song, that's great.
What's your favorite song, Lenny?
Okay, so a couple just need to be mentioned. Iowa Stubborn. These are my people.
Yeah.
They you get to be cranky and moody, and then people find you charming and delightful.
Eat your fill of the food you bring yourself.
Yes.
That's a great line.
So I need to go live in Iowa with these folks. That's a fun song. I absolutely agree with you about You Got Trouble. I think that is a great, inciting incident song. Is that a thing?
Sure.
What a great way to put it, yeah.
I think it is one of the all-time great songs in musical theater. Truly, with no snark, no nothing. It's great when it is well performed, and we will discuss that when we discuss the recordings. I'm gonna actually as well say My White Knight is one of my favorites. Yes.
Stop. I hate that song. Ugh.
I'm gonna later tell you why you're wrong about that. But I think it is. It's really interesting character writing for Marian. It is not a, I want a tall, dark, and handsome man to come sweep me away. She's like, I just want simple things. I want somebody who likes me for me and who is not afraid of a few nice things and can appreciate and will just sit with me on the porch.
Well,
that's all I want. I think it's great.
Yes, and it's just a very well from her character kind of expressing that. I think Stephanie's problem is it right
It's the
with
music.
how the music.
The lyrics
right?
are fine. I mean, I don't love them, but it's the music. Yeah.
Well,
Is it because it jumps into that my way?
Yes, it's too sustained and it's too high for every high school girl I've ever heard do it. And a million high schools do it. They even lowered it a whole step.
Yes,
for
we
Sutton.
will talk about it for
We
the
will
recording.
And
definitely
it
get
helped.
into all
It
of
helped
that.
it so much. It was
was
bearable.
interesting.
I mean, I didn't love her
What?
voice. It was much more bearable in that key.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
we'll
we'll get there.
But anyway, least favorite
Wait,
song.
wait,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
But my actual favorites.
Those all just lead up.
Those are lead up. Those are like, these are the good ones, but this is my
Appetizers.
actual favorite is Light a Rose.
It is good.
It's just charming. I love the tight harmonies with the quartet. And I was, like you, raised in church and with all that church music and
Yeah.
Southern gospel quartets.
Absolutely.
So it was like that.
Feels like
those
home.
songs feels like home. Yeah, exactly.
So hard, again, to
love
get people to
that.
get that right, though, in a community theater setting. But we can talk about that later. Yeah.
So put that with this gorgeous soaring soprano on top of it. Plus the melody is just kind of like jaunty and it's easy on the ear and you can kind of like bob along with it. And it's particularly lovely if the soprano in question can navigate. There's a particular phrase. I don't know,
How Sweet the Memory?
Sweet a
Yep, I knew it,
Memory.
yeah.
If she can just
Yes.
go up there like Barbara Cook and
Let it
Rebecca Luker
float.
can,
Yes.
it's just gorgeous. And I'm also a huge sucker. Is it counterpoint melody? Sucker, huge for that. It just like, makes me
Makes
all
it so
jittery.
interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a few examples of that, aside from Light a Rose, are like Old Fashioned Wedding from Annie Get Your Gun, or one of my very favorites, You're Just in Love from Call Me Madam, and then more recently, Travel Song from Shrek. It's kind of delightful, that thing. And can we hear Rebecca Luker from 2000
Yes,
do that?
please.
A little bit of Light a Rose where she slides up to that How Sweet a Memory?
Yes, here she is.
Sweet and low, sweet and low. Oh, sweet that everyone knows that I am home. Oh, forever. Here is my love. Oh, yes, forever. Not fancy or fun. Will I ever tell you?
Oh, she's the best. Love her.
Love her. Yes.
Okay, now the throw to Forrest, right?
Yes, by all
Forrest's least favorite song.
There are two that I usually skip. One is the Wells Fargo wagon. Like you said, there's that one moment with Winthrop when he, finally actually says words without being forced to by his mother, which is nice. But I usually skip that one. And then Shapoopy, which I don't really care. It's just not. It's one of those songs that it's just there for a dance break, I guess. It's like that 1/3 of Pippin that's just there for the dance breaks and has nothing to do with the story. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we'll
Watch
talk about
your
that. We'll talk about that
phraseology
next
for
time.
it.
Okay, we'll talk about that next time. But just not super necessary to the plot. And then the most recent revival, I think, made it even less fun. But we'll talk about that later too. So yeah, those two songs, Wells Fargo and Shapoopy.
It's important though because it establishes the hussy scorecard. It's a very important thing to do for all women in modern society. I hate that song. Yes. Least favorite, Lenny.
My least favorites are all the ones that Forrest has said he likes.
Oh my God, you guys are agreeing.
No, the ones that he
Oh, you're
likes.
disagreeing. Oh, okay.
Sadder
I'm
but
so
wiser
excited.
girl, I hate. What? It's awful.
Why?
It's
Is it the lyrics? Is it the music?
because he's talking about
It's a little tongue in cheek though.
no,
It's
it
so
is
funny.
not.
It is.
He's trying to get in a little canoodling while he's in town. So
But
he
he's saying it's
says
so funny.
he wants
is such a great word.
I'm stealing it from their script, and unfortunately, it is part of our vernacular. No, he wants that girl who, who will kiss on the third time out, head on the ground, feet on the ground, head in the cloud, whatever. I can't with that. It's awful. It's terrible, and it's borderline offensive.
I prefer
Agreed.
to take a chance on a more adult romance. No doing Miss who keeps resisting
Yeah.
all the while she keeps insisting.
Uh-huh.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, a
Is
more
that the offensive
adult
Are you
part of it?
listening to the
romance.
words that you're
I was
singing?
just enjoying the rhyming. Okay, so I wasn't listening.
Okay.
I mean, yes, I guess it's a little creepy, but
Yeah, a lot.
it's just good lyrics. Okay.
Wells Fargo Wagon I also hate. Yes, that moment with Winthrop is just delightful, but you have to get through, raisins from Fresno and double boilers.
And grapefruits.
Grapefruits, a Macintosh from Seattle, whatever. I can't.
Right.
Just get over it. I can't. Mare and the Librarian, I hate. It's a fun concept. You have to do a very quiet song with a big musical number. Interesting.
I just feel sorry for the saxophone players. They have to play a
Yes.
million times while they're under that whole scene, and then it finally picks up. And by that time, your ear is like so tired
We're
of that.
done with it. And it's so long. And sorry, Forrest. Gary, Indiana, gotta go.
Oh, it's cute. I do like that
hate
one.
It's so short that I don't hate it. I mean, I don't love it, but it's so short
It
that you
gets
can
in
sing
your
it. and
ear.
go.
It is an
and
earworm.
It never leaves.
This is true.
So that's it.
I don't love it, but
All right, Lenny, tell us what your favorite character is. Do you have one?
Okay.
And if you feel like it, you can throw in your favorite actor to have portrayed the role.
It's tricky.
It's going to
to
be
name
Rebecca
my favorite.
Luker, right? I mean,
Maybe it is. Maybe it's not.
no spoilers.
This is for my favorite character. It's really a race to the bottom. Like I find all of them detestable to one degree or another. The question is, which character do you hate the least? That I can answer. And I guess my answer is Winthrop. Because no, I said Winthrop, not Forrest.
I looked up at Forrest and smiled. That's why I said that.
I like him because his circumstance is not of his own making, and he's not had time to develop that Iowa stubborn, cranky personality yet. And I think it is really interesting that I wrote down here authors, but really author singular, gave the emotional heft of the show to the youngest performer.
Ooh, what a
Isn't that
neat
interesting?
thought. Yeah.
And if that performer is able to give an unaffected performance,
Innocent.
yeah. I think Ron Howard did a beautiful job in the film until he started singing, and then all bets were off. But I think he gives a very unaffected performance, and I think it's actually genuinely moving what Winthrop is going through in the course of that show. That his isolation from his family, his having no friends because of his embarrassment, because of his speech issue, then finding confidence in himself and in his situation through Harold giving him permission to be himself, and then the betrayal he feels when he realizes that Harold's a fraud, and then finally the acceptance that folks have flaws and we're all just kind of doing our best. And actually, that is a story that I would very much be interested in seeing, like a Winthrop's story. But what I hate, kind of in conjunction with my favorite character being Winthrop, is the directors and the child performers, in quotes, that create these cutesy, grating, cloying performances with effeth and spitting all over everything. It makes me want to gouge out my eyes and my ears.
Pit, every orchestra pit hates that character.
And to be fair, I bet, knowing what I know of my buddy Forrest over here, I bet he was an absolutely fantastic
you were
Winthrop.
wonderful.
Thank you. I don't know, but can't remember.
I'll ask your mother. She'll tell me.
Oh no, she'll say, "Oh, he was lovely. He was perfect." Sorry, Mom. That's mean.
So that's my favorite character.
All right,
Go for
Forrest,
yours.
your turn. What was your favorite character and who portrayed them the best?
Well, I love the two leads, of course. Harold Hill, great. Barbara Cook, with that same interview when she was talking about the first time she heard the score, I remember she was sitting with the director, Meredith Willson, and Andy Griffith was sitting there with her because they were thinking about casting him in it.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Would have been a different show.
Yes. And they were saying, I don't know why I have this under favorite character in my notes, but she said Meredith Willson was singing You Got Trouble, and she said no one's saying You Got Trouble like Meredith Wilson. Okay, so maybe I would like to hear a recording of him. So that's why I think, because I would like to hear a recording of him playing Harold Hill.
Cool.
The whole thing.
I heard that he used to, like, for 30 years, he would go around L.A. with his third wife, and every party, and they would sit down and play the whole book, the whole score, and he would sing.
Yeah, I don't know about listening to all that, but
I don't know. I thought it was kind of cute. I mean, I'm sure people got tired of it.
yes, but yeah.
Elaine Stritch dined out on Ladies Who Lunch for about 70 years, so you
That's
find
true.
your one
go.
thing,
You find
stick
your
with
niche.
it.
Yeah.
That's so true. But my two, I'm going to name two. Mayor Shin is so funny, okay? At the scene where Harold Hill almost convinces him to buy a trumpet for his son, and then I'm almost seeing the scene, and the mayor's like, "Wait a minute, I haven't got a son." It's so funny.
It would be a really fun role to play, I have to
Stinking
say.
funny. The guy who played the original David Burns, he won a Tony Award too for Best Featured Actor, because I think
That
that role
sounds
is built to be like the funniest probably role in the show. It's hilarious.
The comic relief.
You cross the stage, you say one line, you get a hand, and you go off and take a smoke break. Come back and do it again 5 minutes later.
So funny. And then Mrs. Peru as well, who I think maybe he said he fashioned after his own mother, or maybe someone he knew in the community, Meredith Willson did. But isn't that just a sweet role? And she has some funny lines, too. Both of those characters kind of capture the tongue-in-cheek nature tone of the show, right?
Oh, but everybody has such bad Irish accents.
Well,
I just cringe every
you'll
time.
have to forgive them that. But that scene, where he's like, where Harold Hill goes to him, and he's like, I need someone to play, but I need someone who's Irish. And she's like, we are Irish,
No.
He's like, no. But so I love both those characters.
All right. Well, Lenny, what would you change about the show?
Wait. Can I
go
back
ahead.
up
Yeah,
for just a second?
of course.
You didn't ask this question, but I'm going to answer it anyway.
Go ahead.
My least favorite character. Marion.
Ouch.
First.
The librarian.
The librarian, yes. She is a terrible music teacher. She completely ignores her student.
Yeah.
And she talks on pitch at her mother instead of interacting with her student. She is just as cranky and moody as everybody else in the town, but she somehow thinks she's above it all. She's pretentious, and she complains that essentially she has no friends, but good Lord, Marion, to have a friend, be a friend. And here's what I'm going to cite on that. The example is when she first meets Harold Hill, he says, "Excuse me, did you drop your..." "No." "Can you recommend a..." "No." "I will only be in town in a short time." "Good." Come on, and you're complaining that you have no friends? Get over it.
A friendly soul.
Doesn't even know him yet, yeah. Come on.
She is a librarian, which means she's a researcher, but at the first hint of emotionality or when it affects her personally, she throws truth out the window and actively chooses the sentimentality and the emotional content over the truth that she knows. The facts. She knows that Harold is a fraud, but she destroys the evidence to send the muckety-mucks in town on a wild goose chase looking for those credentials just because she caught feelings because he did something nice for her little brother. The stage direction at the end of Act 1 especially pisses me off. It says, Harold catches Marion's look, which is changing from gratitude to adoration. She becomes a very different person in that moment, and the Marion that we have known for an hour and a half up to that point should absolutely be able to sort those feelings out and deal with them rationally, which is what she's been saying the whole time. All these cranky people, but I'm a real human being. I'm a real girl. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She should be able to sort that out and not just wholesale forget who she is and everything that she wants out of life. Everything about her is so false. Yeah. I hate it.
I don't buy it either.
Thank you. But that said, Marion does have glorious material. Mm-hmm. And I think we said this in the She Loves Me episode that the writers, Bach and Harnick, of that show were probably just so inspired by Barbara Cook. You've got that instrument, that actress, and I'm sure that Meredith Willson felt the same way. You've got that. You've just got to give her the very best material.
Yeah, some soaring lines, some beautiful lines.
But I will also say that I think Harold Hill would be a blast to play. And who would I like to see play him?
Who?
Patti LuPone. Roll the clip.
Yes.
Trouble with a capital T, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pull. Now, I know all you folks are the right kind of parents. I'm gonna be perfectly frank. Would you like to know what kind of conversation goes on with a loving around the hall? They'll be trying out Bevo, trying out Q-Beb, trying out tailor-mates like cigarette fiends, and bragging all about how they're gonna cover up a telltale breath with Sensen one fine night. They leave the pool hole, head for the dance in the armory, libertine men, scarlet women, ragtime, shameless music that'll drag your son and your daughter to the arms of a jungle animal instinct. Hysteria! Friends, the idle praise, the devil's playground trouble. Oh, we got trouble. Right here in River City. Right here in River City. With a capital T and that rhymes with P and that stands for pull. We surely got trouble. We surely got trouble. Right here in River City. Right here. Gotta figure out a way to keep the young once more all after school. Our children's children gonna have trouble.
I had no idea that existed, and that was awesome.
So good.
Well, what would you change about the show, Forrest?
What would I change about this show? Let's see. I'd like to update some of the references. Can we talk about? Do you want to talk about that now?
I was going to
they already made
talk
some
about.
updates.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys your thoughts on two things.
Yeah,
some theaters are cutting the Watanye girls number, and just to fill our listeners in who may not be familiar with this aspect of the show. In the published production and in the musical film, Mrs. Shin, the mayor's wife, she leads a group of girls known as the Watanyi girls of the local wigwam of Hiawatha.
Oh, dear.
And they're in an Indian war dance.
Oh, no.
And, you know, the average person these days, in my opinion, would see that as blatantly racist. You know, it has headdresses and they make up nonsense Indian-sounding words.
Yeah.
And I heard through the grapevine that if you ask them, allegedly, MTI is allowing theaters to replace it with quote, any patriotic tableau. Like, I think it was at the Stanford Summer Festival a couple years back, they did, Mrs. Shin, she dressed up like Washington, and they did this whole tableau of Washington crossing the Delaware instead. Mm-hmm. And the other question, just to tag along with that, is the 22 production, the Hugh Jackman, they changed the words and you got trouble. Instead of warning against shameless ragtime, Jackman's Harold Hill, instead he cautions the crowd about modern music, which I don't know why modern music would be scary, but anyway. And the jungle animal instinct has been swapped for the depths of a syncopated frenzy. What do you guys think about those two things?
Can I jump in first?
Yeah, go for it.
The Mrs. Shin and the Watanyi girls, I had absolutely 100% forgotten about that. And I watched the movie the other night in prep for this, and that came on, and I was like sitting up in my bed, gasping with my eyes agape.
So uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. So I think that they should not... MTI should not have to wait until people ask to change it.
They
just
need
change
to cut it
it.
outright. Like they just changed If Anything Goes, the new version.
Right.
They can do that.
Absolutely, they can. And I believe in the clips that I've seen of the 2022 revival, Jane Houdyshell as Mrs. Shin was dressed up in some sort of...
It's like the Statue of Liberty or something.
No,
they're
no,
Greek. Are they doing Greek?
No, that's later. She was dressed up as a George Washington or one of those soldiers.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
they
You're
did
right,
a
yeah.
patriotic
So
tableau.
they got rid of all that, which was just wonderful, as
Good.
they should.
Good.
Somebody else take it, and then we'll go back to
what do you
the...
think about that,
I also
Forrest?
forgot that was in there. That is super... I don't remember what our church did, but I hope... I shudder to think. But I watched the 2022 revival and didn't think about it. Then I watched a couple local high school and college productions. They didn't have it in there. Then I watched a bootleg of the 2000 one, and they had it in there. And I said,
What is
"Oh,
this?
what in the world?"
Yeah.
So
It was a different time, but
It was.
I feel like
Yeah.
it needs to be updated.
20 years ago, it was
Needs
a
to be
different time. But
updated.
even just a handful of years ago, it was unfortunately still a different time, and we weren't thinking along those lines.
Well, what do you guys think about the changes to You Got Trouble?
The lyrics, they don't. I mean, I guess they're trying to shy away from racist. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Illustration, like a
Hinting.
racist allusion. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
racist allusion to like ragtime being associated with African Americans, and so it doesn't bother me as much those lyrics, but I can see how they might be offensive, and I guess I'm okay if they want to change it. Didn't bother me in the music, so.
What about you?
I am not the right person to ask that question to, being a white man, but I will probably agree with Forrest. It doesn't... possibly the lyrics go by so quickly that I just sort of didn't catch what it was actually saying. And then Music Man is not one that I revisit very often. So it just, since, the times have now changed, it never occurred to me, because I've not listened to it, I guess, since. And when I did listen to the 2022 recording for the first time, I actually didn't notice that they had changed them. So I guess they did a good job with what they chose.
It fit,
And, it fits. But better to be safe than to be offensive, right?
Yeah.
Change them.
What would you change about the show? Everything.
So I would start by cutting the character of Marcellus Washburn. He serves little to no purpose in the show, and what minuscule purpose he does have, he's like a sidekick to Harold Hill and knows him from the old days, and he maybe is showing him that life in a small town isn't so bad, but he adds up to nothing, really. But if you cut him, you shorten the show by 20 minutes, I'll say, because you take all the dialogue out in all of his little scenes, but
And
you also then
Shapoopy, right?
mercifully get rid of Shapoopy
I'm on board with that.
and the sadder but wiser girl.
Nice.
Yes.
I am on board with that change.
I would also get rid of Amaryllis because, as we mentioned, she is a demon and she's
a jerk.
only there to bully Winthrop.
She's a brat.
I would keep the structure of the show. I kind of don't hate that. But I would change references or dialogue. Here, you alluded to something earlier, Forrest, about how Meredith Willson loves the citizens of River City, and I absolutely disagree with that. So I would cut the references to anything that makes them look stupid, because as written, it's like a whole village full of village idiots. I think he hates them. He is saying that these people need saving by this con man, and they don't. They may be, a little behind the times or whatever, but they are comfortable and confident in where they are. They're fine. I would give them back their dignity because Meredith Willson didn't give them any.
Please, yeah. It's if you had grown up the way I think maybe, because you can think of the people in your life that you want to lampoon maybe and slightly roast, maybe a little harsher than usual.
Lampoon, yeah.
So I think he still, loves and respects his background, but he understands them so well that he can poke fun at them in a way
roast them a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll think about that.
Okay.
I respect what you're saying because I am giving you your dignity.
Okay, thank you.
But I just got an ugly feeling about my thoughts about the show in general aside, just rewatching it and re-listening to it lately, so much in prep for this. I just felt kind of ugly about the whole thing. It's like these are good people. They're upstanding people.
You were embarrassed for them.
I was. Yeah. And that's not a realization or an emotion that I thought I would feel about this. Yeah. It's finally. One last thing I would like to change. We all know that Harold and Marion are, for whatever reason, getting together at the end of this silly show. But I would like to give it a bit more tension because it seems to me that there is no moral or ethical struggle for Marion to withhold that information about his credentials once it becomes self-serving for her. So I want her to have more of a struggle in that, because she just rips that page out of the encyclopedia, hides it, and that's the end. And from that point on, she is all in. And like I said earlier, that Marion that we have gotten to know would not do that. I think it's a bad writing
180,
choice.
yeah.
I would also, or make the show more about Winthrop, as I said earlier, make it Winthrop-centric. He is the one that has the biggest character arc, all of that, arguably. But, if you're going to make all these changes, just write a new show. Please write a new show so that I don't have to see this one ever again.
Well, Forrest, what do you think would make it difficult to produce for a community theater?
Not much, honestly.
Finding four men to do harmony, tight harmonies.
Okay, finding the
that's
four men
hard.
and then finding a Marion, that's not going to make our ears bleed with My White Knight, right?
And someone charismatic enough to carry the male lead.
That is kind of a tough part to play. But I will say, not much production-wise do you need to put on this show, right? I literally wrote, what would make it difficult to produce? Not much, just because it's a perfect show for community theaters. And that's why so many do it. That's why you can find hundreds of thousands of the full show videos on YouTube that high schools, colleges, community theaters have all done.
Lenny, what say you?
Sadly, nothing would make it difficult to produce because everybody keeps doing it. So, you're right. The harmonies for the four guys, but that still doesn't stop people from doing it, even if they don't have those four perfect harmonies, or that they don't have the perfect Marion who can just soar through these notes. They're going to do it because it's kids and because it's delightful and all the things. So it's fine. You just keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, what are your final thoughts for the show?
It's a good show. I enjoy it. It's a fun night at the theater. It's a classic. And I will, if I ever see it being put on, I will probably go see it.
Lenny, I'm not sure how you feel about the show. Can you clarify for what are your final thoughts?
I feel like I've, said everything that I've said, and I stand by every bit of it.
Okay.
But perhaps, maybe, what has always given me the biggest bad taste in my mouth about The Music Man is a situation that I sort of created for myself.
Ooh.
Here's the story. That first trip to New York that I took in May 2001, where I saw that revival, which Rebecca Luker was still in the show. Craig Bierko had already left, but Rebecca Luker and some of the original cast were still in it, which I will always be grateful for seeing that show, to have had the opportunity to see Rebecca Luker perform, because we now no longer have that opportunity. But I went on that trip with my dad. The purpose of the trip was to see the 2001 revival of Follies, and specifically to see Joan Roberts in that show. Joan Roberts was the original 1943 Laurie in Oklahoma.
Oh.
Yeah, she was playing Heidi, the one that sings One More Kiss. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, okay, this is the trip. I need to see this show. She'd like come out of retirement to do it. It was a thing. So Dad suggested that we would see another show while we were there. And I don't remember now what all was playing, but I do remember really trying hard to find a show that Dad would appreciate. Like, I knew he wasn't going to necessarily warm to something like Rent, perhaps, that I wanted to see. So I had it down to 2 shows that we were going to see in addition to Follies. It was Music Man and another revival of a classic where the original lead had already left and who had been replaced by somebody who my 21-year-old pretentious self thought had no business playing the role.
God, what a build-up. What is it?
So we ended up seeing The Music Man because how very dare Reba McEntire think she could do Annie Get Your Gun. And to quote Elaine Stritch at Liberty, and we all know what a bum decision that turned out to be.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I thought you were going to say Kiss Me Kate. Was that on then or no?
That I think was on, but it just never appealed to me. I hadn't gotten on the Marin Maisie train yet or the Brian Stokes Mitchell train fully. Yeah. So it was kind of like between Music Man and Annie Get Your Gun. And I was like, she's a country singer. Why does she think she can do Broadway? And come on, how wrong was I? I've said it before, I would sell my mother to have been able to have seen that production with her in it. Hindsight's 2020. So that's kind of why I'm pissed off at The Music Man, even more than everything else.
Right. And now it's time for the Desert Island Discs portion of our show. We'll discuss the major recordings, and then Lenny and Forrest will each choose one and only one, Lenny, of them to listen to for the rest of their Tom Hanks and Castaway skinny days on a desert island. Let's take a minute now to discuss the major recordings. What are they, Forrest?
Let's see. The 3 major that we want to talk about were the original Broadway cast, right, with Robert Preston, Barbara Cook, came out in 1958. The 2000 revival recording, that Broadway revival, and the 2022 revival cast. There are a couple more. There is the soundtrack. There is a London Music Man. There is the Beatles singing Till There Was You, like Lenny said.
Which is lovely.
I was going to say, I love that one.
And there's that 2003 television film with Matthew Broderick as Robert. I'm sorry I didn't mention that. With Matthew Broderick and Kristen Chenoweth playing the lead roles, which was, I watched the first 20 minutes. I couldn't do it.
Lenny, what did you think about that one?
Yeah.
I think that maybe the less said about it, the better.
Okay.
I think that Kristen Chenoweth should have done really well.
Yeah, she's like a Southern Belle.
It's annoying. I find her annoying in that.
I think the I do remember sort of liking the kid that played Winthrop. I don't know his name. I'm sorry. I didn't hate him at all, which is high praise. And but the standout to me was Deborah Monk, who played Mrs. Peru. She didn't bray her way through her songs. I didn't actively hate her either. Which I can't say for the other Mrs. Perus that we're going to talk about. But it was fine, and I generally appreciate that was...
Did you like Matthew Broderick?
No.
I didn't like him at all.
No, milquetoast and hammy and cutesy.
His
it just
face
didn't work.
is just really dull. He doesn't have a lot of facial expression. You have to be a con man. He's
a
not,
tent revival
he's
preacher
like
is what he needs to be, and he's not.
Milquetoast. I don't know. That's what you just said.
He was doing his Ferris Bueller thing.
Yes.
I feel like
that's
very
it.
droll,
It's his
very,
How to Succeed. Just like no thanks. But anyway, I think I totally interrupted you.
No, it's fine. So we got the 3 main ones we'll talk about: the original 2000 revival, 2022 revival.
So which one, if you had to pick one to listen to for the rest of your island existence, which one would it be?
Yeah, let's do some notes. We will go over each of them. Okay. So the original, I really like the tone of the original. I think it catches that sarcastic, making fun of him just about perfect. Robert Preston is just peak Broadway leading man. He's just oozing charm. I will say for me, there's no one else like him who's played that role. And it's really remarkable that he doesn't have a conventionally good voice, really, but he just sells it the whole time. Yeah.
I heard he went into the audition. He said the only reason he thinks he got the role is because he went into the audition and they happened to be doing Trouble. And he said he knew that was the one that he could do.
Yeah,
and they said he just sold it. And they had been really worried about that one number. And they were like, well, this is the guy.
Yeah,
we don't need to hear him sing anything else.
It's perfect, yeah. And he was great, And then Barbara Cook is just soprano
Glorious.
ingenue perfection, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And her hand songs like "Goodnight, My Someone" and "My White Knight" feel right at home, And there's quite a bit of music missing from the CD, but what you do hear, it may just trick you into believing. Like Harold Hill did, it may trick you into believing that the show is better than it is. I feel like you're gonna see that one. Do you want to talk about the original, Lenny?
So Barbara Cook, Robert Preston, there's nothing else that needs to be said about them. They're great. I think we mentioned earlier that this cast album won the very first Grammy Award for a Broadway cast recording. Pert Kelton as Mrs. Peru is giving a vocal performance that only a mother could love. And sadly, every Mrs. Peru who came after her followed suit, with the exception of Deborah Monk in that 2003 awful TV movie. We love Hermione Gingold as Mrs. Shin, the mayor's wife, and we thank the theater gods that her full performance was captured in the movie.
On that side,
as well as that of Robert Preston, and that was very not the norm at that time. To have,
Like I said, Meredith Willson had to fight to get him.
Right.
They wanted to hire a movie star, a traditional movie star.
Probably
to do
like
it.
Danny Kaye or someone like that,
Right.
or Gene
Right.
Kelly, right?
So also the Pickalittle ladies are manic, and they're a struggle to listen to, I feel. And the whole thing is like tinny and pingy and echoey, and it's not warm at all. But that's 1958 recording. It is what it is.
You
It's
had the
different than they are
equipment you
now.
had, yeah.
And I know I literally just complained about the Pickalittle ladies being hard to listen to, but I will counteract that or add to it by saying that I love the fact that this show is peopled with actors, like character actors, rather than people with beautiful voices and seemingly not much else going on, like tends to happen these days more often than I would like to admit. It is a very good recording of the show, if you're into that show.
All right. What about the next recording?
So the 2001, it's quite good as well. Craig Bierko, is that how you say his name?
Well, that's
Craig
what we're going to
Bierko?
go with.
Okay.
I don't know if it's correct.
He sounds a lot like Robert Preston, though, like disarmingly. Like when I was listening to it, I had to check and see which version I was listening to again, just because his mannerisms are so much like him. And obviously, Robert Preston's ghost is difficult to shake in that role. On the plus side for this recording, Rebecca Luker is, just singing beautifully in "Goodnight, My Someone" and "My White Knight." I don't like the added orchestrations to Rock Island. They give a little drum beat there, and I was like, no, you can leave that out if you want. I'm going back to that Barbara Cook interview. Did you listen to that? I meant to send it to you.
Yeah, send it to me. I have not seen that.
She said that when they were in tryouts, I think in Boston, they were out of town somewhere, and they tried it with orchestration, Rock Island, and it wasn't working. Nobody got it. And so I think it was the director, I can't remember who directed it, but it was his idea. He said, okay, no orchestration, just sing or just say the words. And so they did that, and then the audience loved it. So
interesting.
They took away, and so I don't see why the 2022 revival does that too. They add this little drum beat to it, and I think you just let the voices do it. Was there anything else I want to say? This one does include a lot more of the score, a lot more music, but the 2022 has even more. What do you think about the 2001, Lenny?
I'm kind of contradict everything that you just said. My first note was that Craig Bierko and Rebecca Luker are kind of like the poor man's Robert Preston and Barbara Cook, but then I rethought that that's not fair at all. While the similarities are extremely apparent, I guess the production team was clearly not trying to break that mold, and I really appreciate that, and I think that both of those leads are exceptional, and that maybe Rebecca Luker never sounded better on anything.
Yes, I wouldn't say she's a poor man's Robert. Craig Bierko maybe is a poor man's Robert Preston,
but he brings his own thing to it. I think. And one of my favorite small changes I have written is that that they added the percussion for Rock Island. I think it gives it an excitement and a drive and a build that was
probably
not
helps
there in
them
the
all
original.
stay together too.
Probably so.
It probably is like a practicality.
Yeah, I really appreciated that addition. Catherine McGrath as Mrs. Peru does the Mrs. Peru thing and brays her way through the role. Winthrop, played by Michael Phelan, I believe, is the least obnoxious of all of the Winthrops on record, in my opinion. Like the original recording, this cast is full of character actors who are distinctive and who are making choices. Whether or not I prefer those choices is up for debate, but they're doing something.
Yeah.
I like the orchestrations. The sound is big and Broadway, and there is a fair amount of dialogue included, which I almost always appreciate. So
Context, yeah.
I agree. Okay, then we can talk about the 2022 one.
Ye
This
gods.
one is
I've got some thoughts I would
tough.
like to interject.
Yep.
tough.
But you go
Okay,
first.
I'll go first and I'll pass it to you. It was, like I said, it was one of those first big productions to come back after COVID. Sutton Foster, I would say, is not ideally cast here as Marion.
That's
unfortunately,
putting it sweetly.
It's
she
so
is-
forward and nasal and huge vibrato. I just did not enjoy
She is
it.
no soprano ingenue in the likes of Rebecca Luker. Wait, can I say Rebecca Luker's accent? I don't like her speaking accent.
Oh, really?
She does a southern accent, sorry, that I don't really love. I was watching the bootleg today and in the CD. When she talks, I don't love it. When she sings, it's fine.
Why did she do that?
go.
Iowa is
Well,
not in the South.
She's from
Yeah,
Birmingham.
she does do a little.
Oh, it's
So
her
there's that.
natural
It's her
creeping
natural.
in.
I didn't know
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
Wow.
I actually really liked her. I didn't watch that bootleg that you're referring to, but on the dialogue leading into the even the music lesson part, I like her voice. I don't think it's Southern at all. It is a little Midwestern nasal. I can recognize that. I'm not from Iowa, but Midwest enough. Born and raised. So I liked it. So I'll have to go back and listen to the bootleg.
Yeah, but sorry, I was talking about Sutton Foster.
Yeah.
I'll say some nice things. I think the characterization that she does is a little unique and new. It's a little more independent, and she has more agency to her character. Though the songs just weren't written for it, the lyrics she sings them with feeling, they had to change. They completely changed "My White Knight" for her, right?
Yeah.
They took out.
She shortened so many phrases. They lowered it.
They lowered the key. They changed the whole song. Like
rewrote
there's
the
different
lyrics.
Yeah.
They're actually Meredith Wilson's original lyrics.
Are they
originally.
really?
Oh, that makes me think
that
better,
he had
actually,
written.
of it.
Yeah, and I think for Sutton, it actually works very well in her voice because it's like a little, kind of like the preamble to "Sadder but Wiser Girl," which maybe not in the tone of it, but just in the way it's written musically, kind of a build, which I appreciated more for her because I do not want to hear her singing that whole white. I think she only says "My White Knight" once or twice in her version of it. Thankfully, sings it. And then there's Hugh Jackman, who is a huge draw, right? Huge, big, charismatic movie star. He's not a theater novice either. He's he's won a Tony Award, right, for Boy from Oz. Did he win the Tony?
Yes, he did.
And then he was in the Oklahoma.
Yep.
A while
in
back.
London in '98.
Right.
Fantastic on that recording.
Seemingly perfect to play Harold Hill Wright.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's no nice way to put this. He sounds terrible
His
in
voice
the recording.
I just kept thinking Ethel Merman.
tired. It's nasally.
So
Yeah, the
nasal and
vibrato is
forward
weird.
and forced sounding squeezed.
Ooh,
Did
it's
not
so
enjoy
bad.
it at
It's
all.
so unpleasant to listen to. It's really
Agreed.
difficult to listen to his song.
I went into it so excited. Yeah, I wanted
Marian.
to. Yes, it's
Oh.
goat-like. It is not a good sound. It doesn't even sound healthy.
Yeah, his songs just come and go. They don't sound like the showstoppers that they are in the original. And to me, it makes me appreciate what Robert Preston was doing in that original cast, being so
Right, the
charismatic.
finesse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then a couple more. Shapoopy has the rewritten lyrics, which I'm fine with. The original ones are inappropriate and juvenile, but it does make the song less fun and makes me say, let's just cut the
Should
whole
we
song.
listen to a little clip of that?
Sure, yeah.
Do we have to?
Yes.
Well, a fella who goes on his very first date is usually shy and fretful, and a fella who tries for more than a kiss will end the night regretful. But a fella who waits for his girl to say when, head in the clouds, shout amen. He's the guy she'll date again. He's a shapoopy, 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 shapoopy.
The boy who tries his best
Shapoopy, shapoopy, shapoopy.
to pass the ladies' test.
Read her monster, raise the curtain, talk to her paw just to make for certain. Give her a rose from a flower garden, she'll never be gone if you beg a pardon.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, si, do.
Now little old gal's a teacher who is prone to feigning spells. I carried her off to the preacher, now she hears wedding bells. Squeeze her once, tell her she's good looking. If you get a squeeze back, woo, fancy cooking. Hold her hand for a pepper upper, she'll never be mad on her way to supper.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, si, do.
Okay, I actually did not make note of that before. I'm glad we listened to that clip. I didn't realize that those had.
They change them, and so
Yeah, it's an entirely new
But
song.
if you want to mention miscast people, that Marcellus he's a baritone, and it's a role written for like a more of a tenor. But
And
anyways,
that is Shuler Hensley, who was Judd to Hugh Jackman's Curly in that '98 Oklahoma.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then he also did it in 2002 on Broadway with Patrick Wilson, and then won the Tony for it. And he was excellent.
Well, he was miscast, I think.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
I know you can't hear the choreography when you listen to the recording, but the choreography for this production I thought was overblown.
If you had
Not
seen
great.
it online someplace,
Yes.
which I also allegedly might have seen it on, and I would agree with you on that.
Hey, you don't even have to watch it there. You can watch the Tony Award performance.
Oh, there you go.
Which was terrible.
Which song did they do?
They did the curtain call thing where they're in the band uniforms.
yeah,
It is hurt. You probably saw it and didn't remember it just because it's so underwhelming. Compare that to the choreography that Susan Stroman did for the 2001. Well, just watch the Tony Awards. You don't have to watch also.
Yes.
Watch the Tony Awards. Stroman's choreography is so organic and natural. It's great.
Yes.
I will say,
Stroman knows how to
desperate.
build a dance number.
yes, she does, and build is very important.
Yes.
I will say for everything else in the recording besides the two leads is actually really good. The orchestrations, the orchestrations sound great. You may have some quibbles with the individual actors, but the orchestrations, I'm saying, sound great. The sound is good, and there's a lot of music on there. I think it's the longest of any of the recordings, which is kind of a bad thing. But like you listen, Rock Island's fine. They kept that drum beat again, which I don't love, but what are you gonna do? Lenny goes, right? Or Stephanie, did you?
No, it's
Did
just
you say
I was
your
gonna
thoughts about Sutton being?
I interjected. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did not care for either of their voices in this, and I went into it so excited and so prepared to just love it. And if I had allegedly watched the on the tubes, she hammed it up so much. There was so much that she added.
Did.
And it was
He would
too
like wink with the audience.
too.
He would break
And
character just for fun.
They had a planned break every night in the same place. She pushes him right after she talks to Charlie, and he's about to ask her to go to the footbridge, and they act like it's this authentic break, and the audience just eats it up, and they do it every damn night.
That makes me so mad.
It made me mad too.
I love a break when it's natural.
When it's real.
Who doesn't love a comedic break when the
Right.
actor breaks just because it's so funny? But you could, to me, I didn't know that, but I could kind of sense. I was like, this isn't charming.
So fake. Anyway, Lenny, to you.
Just going to run through these real fast. In Rock Island, what do you talk? What do you talk? Where are the consonants in that man's performance?
Chris, when I was listening, he goes, "What is that? So annoying."
What do you talk? 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 Is how he did it. Now, flash forward one song to Iowa Stubborn. Why the over enunciation? Give some of those consonants to what do you talk?
They need a
Please.
better chorus master.
Yes. In regards to Hugh Jackman, who needed a note perfectly sung version of You Got Trouble? Robert Preston and everybody who came after him, Rex Harrison sang through that number, and we like it that way. Nobody asked for Hugh Jackman to create a melody.
It's not an
in
opera.
there.
Yeah.
I don't need it. Put it back the way it was. He is, like you guys said, pinched and nasal, and at times seems like almost apologetic. Being
Yes,
Harold Hill, he's not a tent revival preacher that we need.
Finesse or charisma. It's just
Yeah,
there is charisma, but it's
bland.
forced charisma, so that it's just so in your face. It's painful. Oh,
And as milquetoast as Matthew Broderick was in that
Yes.
2003, I would rather him over Jackman.
Yeah, he's so bad. Do you think because he's been in movies so long, he was used to playing it closer and not playing it out to the audience? Maybe.
I wouldn't
Maybe.
think so. I mean, he frequently comes back to the stage.
I guess so, but you watch Craig Bierko do it, and he's playing to the last
Yes.
row in the house. And you watch
Yes.
Hugh Jackman, it's like he's one of the ensemble. He comes and goes without
Yeah.
even noticing. But
Pickalittle was slow as Christmas. What is with the ad-libs in the Mary and the Librarian number? Oh, books. We're reading books. Books for everybody. What is that?
he added
Why?
so much in that whole scene.
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
In regards to Shapoopy, I think we've already kind of covered it, but my notes say you have an awful song which has no purpose for existing. The lyrics are untoward. Why rewrite it entirely and make it worse? You could just cut it.
just cut it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The unequivocal bright spot I think I've mentioned is Jane Howdyshell as Mrs. Shin.
She is very funny.
Love her.
Let's just. You want to listen to a little clip of her, or is this? Or do you have it planned for a different
No,
time?
we can do it. We
Yeah.
listened to one with
to
her
her say
line
reticent,
reading earlier.
right?
Reticent. But this is actually a good one. This is a they didn't add a song to the show, but they added a song to the record. Probably the first time it was ever recorded. It's called Columbia, Gem of the Ocean. It's
right.
that red, white, and blue
Yes.
4th of July thing. Oh, she is just a national treasure that we don't deserve her. And listen to the end of this, what she does with her vibrato. It's amazing.
Let's do it. Let's hear it.
The high banners make tyranny tremble when borne by the red white and blue. The high banners make tyranny tremble. Everybody wearing more by the red, white, and blue.
Okay, yeah, that was amazing. You're
She's
right.
a blast. And then finally, okay, there's the Sutton Foster of it all. You guys have talked about it. I'm going to talk about it. The Sutton Foster and all that entails. There is no bigger Sutton Foster fan than me. I love her. I saw her in Millie before it ever opened, and I said, that girl is going places. She's going to win the Tony. She's going to be a star. I saw her in Anything Goes. I saw her in concert, and I saw her just a couple weeks ago in Sweeney Todd. I love her. She is, I agree with Forrest, giving a very interesting take on Marion, and I don't hate it at all. But the thing is, I don't see a problem with altering keys slightly for, your performance. Like, I have 12 recordings of Gypsy, and every rose is in a different key. It's great.
Fine. It
Find
can be
where
helpful.
It fits and put it there. But what I do have a serious issue with is changing the key so much that the song is not recognizable anymore as to what it was, or the songs, plural. For example, would you be interested in hearing Old Man River sung by Mandy Patinkin in his falsetto-y tenor? Or do we want to
I'm sure he did it, but no, I'm not.
But maybe he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Would we like to hear Shoshana Bean riff her way through Vanilla Ice Cream from She Loves Me? No, we don't. Do you want to imagine Ethel Merman playing Marion the Librarian? Or Patti LuPone? Or Adina Menzel? We love them, but they are vocally so wrong for the role, and so is Sutton Foster.
Yeah.
I do not need to hear My White Knight belted. Come on. And the lyrics rewritten, you've clued me in on what that's about, so I'll kind of back up on that. But seriously, were there no sopranos in Manhattan
Exactly.
that could have done this? Where was Laura Benanti or Kelly O'Hara or Sierra Boggess or Jessie Mueller or, in a pinch, Kate Baldwin?
True. Lyric soprano.
Right.
Yes. Ugh.
If you wanted to cast it non-traditionally, you got Philippa Sue or Danae Benton that can go in there and just soar.
Yeah.
So why are we stuck with Sutton Foster? Marion, and this is going back to your pitched so high argument. I'm going to try to rebut that a little bit. And nobody wants a schlocky high school community theater soprano. I get that. But Marion, from a character perspective, feels like an outsider in her community, and her music reflects that. She is doing one thing, this gorgeous, soaring, beautiful thing, and the rest of the ensemble are singing kind of real basic, easy key stuff.
Light a Rose and Will I Ever Tell You.
Exactly. I mean, not that those harmonies are easy, but that juxtaposition shows Marion and her community.
She's on a different
she
plane.
is very othered.
I can see that. That's an interesting take.
And you don't even need to think about it. You just have to passively listen. And you may not put those words together, or I may be reaching too much into it, I guess, as I do. But you can tell that something's different with Marion than from everybody else. So whatever the changes, the reason for these changes that were made for Sutton Foster, that took away what makes Marion special, I think. And even with the changes, I still don't like where it sits in her voice. It's just bad. Everything about it is bad. So what I would like to do, if I can, and Stephanie, you may want to close your ears on this, but I would like for us to, we're not going to be the last word on this. I would like to throw it out to our listeners. Let's hear a little clip of Barbara Cook sing The End of My White Knight, and Rebecca Luker sing The End of My White Knight, and Sutton Foster sing The End of My White Knight. And listeners out there in podcast land, comment. Let us know what you think.
I'll be rocking in the corner back and forth repeatedly.
Yes.
My white knight, let me walk with him where the others ride by. Walk and love him till I die. Till I die. where the others ride by. Walk and love him till I die. Till I
I know who I would pick.
Me too.
Okay, honestly. Oh, one last note about the 2022 one. In the Till There Was You, do you notice what's missing from that one? Even in the original, they had Robert Preston come back in and sing a harmony. They do not have Hugh Jackman come in and sing any of Till There Was You, which I thought was really interesting.
Yep.
But that's all I have,
Agreed.
so we can pick. What's your pick, Lenny? You want to go first?
Oh, yeah. My pick is head and shoulders, hands down, the 2000 revival. I think it is the very best case scenario for that show. And even though this is not one, like I said, that I revisit ever, I do every now and then get a hankering to hear some of these tunes by that cast. It's just a super, super good recording all the way around in every sense of the word.
Okay, Forrest.
I'm fine with that, but I think you're picking the inferior one because the original, to me, is the best. I think if you listen to the original, you listen to it kind of how it was originally done, and you can kind of put yourself in the theater of in 1950 when it would have been, you know, just a stunning thing to see. Not stunning maybe, but just a very remarkable score and show to listen to. And just Robert Preston, no one has ever, you know, topped that for me as charisma. And then you throw in Barbara Cook.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Take Barbara Cook too. So, but I'll take the original if I'm picking one.
If I could take Barbara Cook, Robert Preston, and then the rest of the ensemble,
maybe so, yeah.
and the way that 2000 revival was mastered, and the just listening experience of it. But yeah, there we go.
Okay, there you have it.
And you wonder what
To close out this time we've spent with our feature musical, it's time for our if-then recommendations, where Lenny and Forrest give their recommendations for follow-up listening. Lenny, what do you think?
I think that if you enjoy the Music Man, you're probably not a person that I want to spend much time with. But aside from that, you might also enjoy MAME, score by Jerry Herman, that is almost across the board excellent. Like the Music Man, it features a dazzlingly charismatic leading role played by Angela Lansbury on the 1966 recording. It's chock full of character roles. It's got these huge choral songs. Excellent stuff for featured and supporting players, of which there are many, and it even features a very small boy. Also, like the Music Man, the book in its current form has significant issues and some songs that may need new lyrics as well.
Way more racist than the Music Man, I'd say.
Potentially, yeah. But just for a listening experience, listening purposes, it's a big brassy score full of like Broadway razzmatazz, and it will leave you smiling.
Okay, Forrest.
I like that pick. I'd say if you like the Music Man, maybe Guys and Dolls, which you probably you should probably be familiar with if you listen to that, but it has the same kind of jokey tone. But there was another comedy. This one was written in 1930s. Are you familiar with Of Thee I Sing by George Gershwin?
No.
Ira Gershwin. You all should listen to it. In fact, I remember listening. It's a great comedy score. Ira Gershwin is at his peak. He's at the top of his comedic lyrics, and George is great as well. But it's just super funny, super satirical, kind of like the Music Man. It has more of a wink to the audience. But this one was written in, I think, 1931. And I remember listening to it, and I was like, why was Oklahoma such a big deal in 1943 if they had already had this? And because this is great. Like, it is already a combination of the lyrics and music. Maybe Oklahoma was just a bigger revelation, or maybe not enough people saw Of Thee I Sing. But that's a great musical that you should check out if you like the Music Man.
I absolutely will do that.
Yeah.
And now it's time for the Battle Royale portion of our show, where Forrest and Lenny take on a musical theater topic of their choosing to talk, you can bicker, you can talk, you can bicker, you can talk all you wanna, and debate and delight us all. They're gonna kill me after this. Debate and delight us all with their wit and wisdom. For this episode, they're going to discuss shows that deserved to win the Tony Award for Best Musical over the shows that actually won, in honor of The Music Man beating out West Side Story. Guys, I'm betting this will get pretty contentious, and I look forward to every single snide comment. Who wants to grab that anvil and jump into the deep end first? You just volunteered with your no, Lenny.
But to clarify, when I was first learning about all this theater stuff and theater history, I remember just being agog and aghast to learn that West Side Story had lost that Tony Award to Music Man. It just seemed like, how could that possibly happen? West Side Story was cutting edge and revolutionary, and for me personally, it was really influential on my journey into this whole theater thing. It was very inspirational, very all of the things. And it is responsible for a lot of what I ended up gravitating towards and still today. And Music Man, I don't know, you mentioned earlier, Forrest, that the music of it might have been a little bit ahead of its time or different than... But to me, I just get the idea that it was probably seemingly dated and tired already when it opened. I don't know. But when coming up with this question, I think the words that you and I used were something to the effect of best musical losses that were egregious and or emotionally devastating.
Emotionally devastating, I remember that. Yeah.
And we did decide that, yes, indeed, one can retroactively be emotionally devastated for an event that occurred before you or possibly even your parents were born.
Right.
So that's just a clarification on the question. Do you want to go or do you want me to go first?
You go ahead and go,
Okay.
Lenny. Why not?
So in looking back at the list of nominees and winners for Best Musical, there are a handful that went to the show that I didn't love the most, or that I would have preferred, to have won. But really, for the most part, I think they got it right throughout the history of that award. Or at least I can understand why it went to the eventual winner, even if it wasn't my personal favorite. However, there are two that I'm giving serious side-eye to. And those are 1972, when Two Gentlemen of Verona beat Follies.
Yeah,
Wow.
Come on. And then maybe possibly more egregiously when Billy Elliot in 2010 inexplicably came out ahead of Next to Normal.
Yeah.
I don't understand. But
rigged.
the one that for me fits the bill of both egregious and emotionally devastating and possibly unconscionable as well was 1958. That is the year that both The Sound of Music and Fiorello beat Gypsy.
Oh my God.
Gypsy, book by Arthur Lawrence, score by Julie Stein, lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, staged, choreographed by Jerome Robbins. Generally considered, and certainly by this theater nerd, is considered to be one of the most, if not the most, perfectly crafted musicals of all time.
Wow.
At 1960, sorry, 58
Not
was.
58.
I'm sorry, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
1960,
Thank you
just
for
make sure,
that.
yeah.
I was writing this
You're
at
good,
something
yeah,
like 3 in the
1960,
morning
yeah.
today, so yes, 1960. It's perfect. You could take out the entire score, and it's a perfect play. You can do the music by itself, and it's a fantastic album. It is just perfect. Perfect. And The Sound of Music, in particularly the stage show, is just not awesome. Yeah. The movie is a treat, and we all love it.
Yeah.
But the show...
Not so much.
...is fine. And Fiorello, insert the Mariah Carey, I don't know her meme for this. I'm not all that familiar with Fiorello. I've listened to the score once. Okay. But it's Bach and Harnick, the writers of She Loved Me, Fiddler on the Roof. So there is inherent quality, obviously, but it's largely forgotten, and things that get largely forgotten are forgotten for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes. Gypsy has stood the test of time for a reason also. It is good. It is excellent. It is great. Why did it lose Best Musical? Well, in the words of Ethel Merman, you can't buck a nun, so The Sound of Music wins it.
Jeez.
Forrest.
Yeah, sorry. Fiorello is good, but it's not as good as Gypsy, is it? I do
know.
No.
So mine, for emotionally devastating, I wanted to pick one that I knew both the musicals. So like Follies and Two Gentlemen of Verona, I do think that's egregious, but I don't know anything about Two Gentlemen of Verona. I haven't listened to that one. There is a recording.
That's okay.
Yeah, and that's probably why.
Again,
of that.
there's a reason
and
why.
Billy Elliot Next to Normal, yes, that scarred me for life. But and the reason I don't know Billy Elliot is because I refuse to listen to Billy Elliot after a beat.
Stubbornness.
I am I do get bitter about these
You hold a
awards,
grudge
so
against the show.
I definitely do. So I'm going to talk about one that was in my lifetime. It was one of the first Tony Awards where I knew I had listened to all the contenders. It was 2013. So it was the year the nominees were Kinky Boots, Bring It On, the musical, A Christmas Story, the musical, and Matilda. And I loved Bring It On. I thought it was very nice. I knew it wasn't going to win. I listened to Kinky Boots. I thought it was okay. You know, I appreciate Cyndi Lauper wrote the music. I was like, well, that's fun, you know. And Billy Porter is great in that show. But then Matilda the musical with music and lyrics by Tim Minchin. I loved that show. I thought it was
show.
Yeah, I just thought it was adorable. I remember we talked about this. There was another one I waited up in college to download, the Broadway cast, because I listened to the London one, but the Broadway cast recording, I was so excited for it. And I just thought for sure Matilda would win it.
Yep.
But little naive Forrest didn't know that the American theater, I'm going to slander them right now, but the American theater, Tony Wings or whatever, Antoinette, they work against, they will, you know, pick and choose their winners. Yeah. They wanted to get Cyndi Lauper up on that stage, I firmly believe. And I don't think even Tim Minchin wasn't even there. I don't think he could attend the ceremony. So why would they give, she won Best Score. And that was also ridiculous. If you watch the Tony performances, the Kinky Boots has one of the most forgettable ones. They do this song called "Everybody Say Yeah," and the title is just as bad
alone.
as it's horrible. And then you watch Matilda. Matilda's one for they do Revolting Children and When I Grow Up, and it's so wild. Like it's magical. A blast. Yeah. And there's a lot of slant rhyme in Matilda, so I don't love that. But I just thought for sure Matilda would win. And they gave it to Kinky Boots. And I was like, what? Just drove me crazy.
I will absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not like a major one. You think it's not a Follies. It's not, what's another one that I always get upset by? Oh, Falsettos and Crazy for You. That's another one. Yeah. But I've never listened to Crazy for You because I'm bitter that it be. Maybe I'll listen to it one day.
It's okay.
Do you know that one?
Yeah, it's fine. Another one that I guess I don't get upset about it because intellectually I know why the show won, but it's an emotional thing. It was 2003, Hairspray versus Moving Out.
Oh.
Hairspray is great. It's a big old musical comedy, but Moving Out, I did see it in New York and I saw it on tour here in Nashville. And still, one of the most emotionally investing... am I saying that right? Evenings I've ever spent in the theater.
Really? I have not
absolutely intense.
paid much attention to that show.
Well,
I'll have to
because
it's a Billy Joel jukebox.
It's a Billy Joel dance piece.
Okay. Is it a jukebox musical?
Yeah, it's all Billy Joel's catalog of songs.
And it's emotionally moving?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Strangely enough. I'll see if I can find some clips and things and send them your way. Yeah. But it was kind of a devastating show. If you think about it, a lot of his music was written in the 70s about Vietnam. Yeah. And so that's a huge focal point in the show. And which of their friend groups survived, which didn't, and why. It was. I'm getting way off topic, but that's one that was also a little emotionally devastating. But understandably, it went to the other show.
Goodbye.
And now, sadly, our time with you, dear listener, has drawn to a close. Be sure to tune into our next episode where Turnabout is fair play and we'll be reviewing Forrest's most favorite show of all time. What is it, Forrest?
It's Pippin.
Yes, he's doing the Why God arms right now with music and lyrics by Stephen Schwartz and book by Roger Reherson. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Settling Scores, the musical theater podcast. If you enjoyed it, please like, rate, and review us. And most importantly, tell your friends about it. And somebody has been telling friends in Virginia. We're sending a special shout out to all of our listeners in the Old Dominion state of Virginia. There are a ton of you guys, and you are our highest listening U.S. state, and we love you.
We love you, Virginia.
You're not Iowa stubborn. No, you're Virginia sweet. See what I did there? You thought I was done, but I knew you secretly wanted just one more pun, and you're welcome. Anyway, if you'd like to share your thoughts on what you heard today or on any other musical theater topic, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/settlingScores.podcast or on Instagram at simply Settling Scores Podcast. Who knows, we might just quote you on an upcoming show. Until next time, this is Stephanie.
Lenny.
I'm Forrest.
Saying farewell.
Farewell. See you later.
Farewell.